Jody, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Deirdre, don't sweat it. I'll just kind of start over and do a very quick introduction, and we'll get right into it. Thank you. I see that we're recording. So tonight is the 24th of March. This is the Finance Committee meeting. We have several guest speakers, including a member of the Select Board, the Chair, Mr. McCaffrey, Veteran Services Officer John Moore, Recreation Department, Chris Fogarty, several members of the board, 6 members currently on, so quorum, and we shall get started. So floor is yours, John, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I see that I'm on. All right. One thing you always do in the military is like you do the bottom line up front just to, here's what is going on. Obviously above level service request. And it's just based on, I was hired a year ago and it was like, okay, 2 hours, that's what we need you for. And I abided by that for maybe about 1 or 2 months, but with the pandemic, it actually kind of weirdly helped me because I started doing a lot of training that before you had to go to, training up in Boston. It'd be like a week long. Make a long story short, I got quite a lot of, certificates and accounts, and I'll go into that. But obviously when you have more capability, more time requirements really come up. And my thing is, do you want me to return to that or keep going with the momentum that I think this position requires to do it at least similar to the surrounding towns that have full-time VSOs? So that's my bottom line up front. Literally, they call it the bluff statement, and I put that there. Okay, and just here's some, accomplishments. Is kind of, we like to be a little bit more humble, but just things that have happened. Like for example, Chapter 115, that it helps out about 12 veterans here in Millis to get over the poverty line. It's a, for any veteran, based on their income, just to pull them up. And so that's Chapter 115. However, there was missing steps Millis was doing. And in doing so, the missing step was having the state of Massachusetts reimburse. So Millis was paying out on many of these veterans to help them get above the poverty line. However, they weren't getting any money, or Millis was not getting any money back. So when I figured that out after I did my training and went into the VSMIS system, which is, information system for veteran support, we came back and we just realized, I connected the state and I was like, I think I see something. And they're like, we're sending Millis, significant amounts of money. And it came to about 72,000. Because 36,000 was going out and nothing was coming back. So we recouped 75% of that, which now results in where we were sending out around 3,000 per month. Now, we're getting back about, $2,425. So significant cost savings that just weren't there for the past quite a few years. And it was just one of those things. It's very time consuming, but you have to learn the system and get into it. So that was, for the little, department I have, that was some good cost savings and coming back to the people in Millis. The other thing that, if you've all heard the VA, there's always those, there's some parts of it that are magnificent, but the bureaucracy is not magnificent. And one of the things that I was able to procure for about $350 was a system called VetRespect, which gives real time on VA claims. And I don't know if there's any veterans out there, but if they're hearing this, they're like, real time VA claims, like I'll know where it went once we fax it. And there are a lot of horror stories, and there were horror stories in Millis, including, I give a few examples at the bottom there. One individual, that veteran one, is a gentleman from Millis who he just randomly called and said, it's been 3 years. And I checked up on it, and it was still at the VA, but just hasn't been processed. It needed that final push. And I talked to the pusher because I could now see it in the system. And he's like, well, it's been 3 years. He's got to redo it all. And he's COVID going on. He doesn't feel comfortable doing it. So I'm going to wait. I have to wait until he comes in, but at least we flagged it so he can come in and just kind of re-sign paperwork, and he'll get some significant benefits. Veteran 2, literally, and this is all, I got VetRespect literally about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. I got in early February. So almost 2 months I've had this system, and it's already paid off. Veteran 2, I just found out he was at Camp Lejeune Marine. They had toxic water. He has bladder cancer. He's actually at the hospital right now. And I was able to call him up and tell him, you're 100% disabled. You're now going to get like $3,000 per month from the government, plus all your medical is taken care of. So he literally didn't believe me. I had to take screenshots of VetRespect, send it to him while he's in the hospital, and he was pretty excited, to say the least. Veteran 3, which goes back to that chapter 115, where he was getting about $1,000 a month from Millis and the state of Massachusetts, but I put him on a federal system because he rated it. So he's just one that I'm gonna try to get more on the federal system, so the federal taxpayer can pay for it, and it's a little bit more money rather than the state of Massachusetts and Millis. But you have to figure out, I hate to say, the system, and you got to just get into it and figure it out. And then number 4, here was just somebody just talking about, vocational rehabilitation. I didn't really know too much about it. I dove into it. He's now getting a free PhD. So we're going to have a resident of Millis who is, so he can keep his he wants to be a college professor, get his PhD, so there's a lot of things coming back to the town, whether it's money or, there's going to be a guy with a PhD walking the streets that wouldn't have been before. So these are, I feel happy because I'm helping out my fellow veterans get these benefits that they rate, but you have to dive in there and be aggressive. And just some other, just smaller ones, I can skim these. I know I don't have as much time, is just like the Veterans Property Tax Abatement. It used to be in the Council of Aging, but I grabbed it because we weren't in the spirit of it. They were giving it to all, retirees, and there's no income and there's no age limit. So since I grabbed it, I was able to give a veteran, single mother of 3, she's like 44 years old, and she has some significant skills and high education. So instead of, instead of older retirees, which are fine, but they can go to the Council on Aging. I'm trying to get some of the newly, new veterans who return to Millis. Maybe they're 28 and they just bought a house and they could use their tax write-offs. They have a few kids and they have unbelievable skills. So that's the spirit of the program that I'm want to inject. Okay. But again, you have to monitor it. And I guess another thing that we have is at least 2 hours every week of Zoom calls, which is amazing because that's where I get all these tidbits of information from other veteran services officers. And that's where I find like the BRAVE Act, where, the property tax abatement actually moved up. Nobody knew, but it's been moved up for a few years. So the Millis veterans who could get an extra $500 were obviously pretty pleased with that. But they rated it technically for the last few years, just nobody kind of knew about it. We got some COVID vaccine clinics through the VA in surrounding towns. And I thought it was going to be bigger, but it was only about like 10 or 12 veterans from Millis that I was able to send to local VFWs to get their COVID. But hey, that's a dozen or so. So just another thing is I have an account and, it's Corey, all that stuff. But where veterans can access their DD-214s, which is their proof that they served, which is the starting point and every single benefit they can ever get. So we have that at Millis where so many veterans lose it. It's a piece of paper. So many older veterans do, but now I can get onto it's a federal system where I have access to now. So that's again, just a big capability that we have. And Food for Vets, that was at Gillette Stadium, and that was just a lot of hours driving to Gillette, getting boxes of 2 weeks worth of food, bringing it back. And it's about 28 families here in Millis that I was able to, during COVID, get these boxes of food. And just future initiatives, again, education. I'm excited when COVID is gone, when I can talk to a bunch of veterans and talk to them about VA loans, the vocational stuff, like, hey, you might be able to get a PhD, or, just a pension where the Chapter 115 Marine or veteran can now get, federal pensions, and, there are Massachusetts benefits. So just the education has got to be there. And of course, I want to just engage those younger veterans. I get a list of veterans who have returned, and I'm constantly sending them, just how you doing letters, come visit me, email me, because they're obviously a lot better with email and social media than our, I kind of have the bookends. I have the young, veterans who are very savvy, and then the World War II, Korea, Vietnam veterans, where I have to go to their house to get them to sign things because they don't know PDFs or any of that other things. So kind of time consuming, and just continue Millis as being a veteran friendly community. Because believe it or not all communities, I live in Medway, and I went for help and I couldn't track down the VSO there. I had to go to like Ashland. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so these are just kind of what I compared. I've been there for a year of kind of past where we did have some of the programs, but they just, lack of better, they just weren't run with efficiency. There's no reimbursement. The VA claims were just, downloaded, printed, given, and then faxed. Now we have a system that's up to date. You can see it immediately, exactly where it is, and then call numbers to push it through and get feedback. Huge difference. I wish I could shake the computer. And military records, everybody's, where's my DD 214? I lost it. And wherever, now I can provide that for Millis veterans. And again, those virtual meetings are here to stay, thank God. Okay, and just the last thing, just kind of comparing, just talking with the town administrator, I was just like, okay, I just want to encapsulate, Millis has been getting some really good bang for the buck. Like, we have the capabilities that the larger towns have. However, the larger towns, or even not so much larger, they have staff where they have a person dedicated to VA claims, a person dedicated to Chapter 115, and then you have a VSO and assistant VSO. And that's what this slide, it's just showing the salary of the VSO or assistant VSO, and then just the total on staff. And as you can see, there's a few cities that don't, there's no staff. It's a one-man fighting hole, we call it in the military. And that's where Millis is. The closest, in comparison, I talked to quite a lot of this Bridgewater gentleman, because he's also part-time, not as many part-time VSOs. And, just talking to him, he's retired, and I guess he's the closest, but don't worry, I'm not looking to his salary. Okay. So that's what Mike and I were just talking about, is like, hey, let's just do a sort of closest comparison and just kind of common sense approach this. And, I kept track of the time, the Zoom calls, the phone calls, the administrative, I wouldn't say burden, because I do it because I see the results. So, but just the administrative work that has to put in to get, with everything you have to do with the VA or anything you have to do with benefits in Massachusetts. So I guess bottom line, after talking with the town administrator, I was hired for 2 hours. I'm not working 2 hours, and I'm glad I don't. You can't do it effectively. You can't. It's not, I think, appropriate for Millis has, it's about 10%, of the population is veterans. So it's about 400, actually about 450 veterans here in Millis. And I guess you can read that slide, and hopefully I did what you guys wanted me to do, because it's my first one, but I guess that's, if you have any questions for me or.
Good, John. Thank you very much. I do have a question. So you can defer to, you certainly can defer to Carol, to John to help you out, or excuse me, to Mike to help you out with this. But I did see that there's a request for $10,000, and I thought it was for Vetrospect. I don't know if it's for additional capability or it's actually in the budget materials. So we're interested to hear about that.
I'm sorry. That is a Chapter 115 benefits. And what we front that, and then we get paid 75% back. Okay. So in the Chapter 115, as I was submitting that, I got a few calls on that. So I was kind of leaning forward as they came in, and I went through their information and put it in the system like appropriately, instead of using calculators and making mistakes and putting people on programs who didn't rate it. They didn't rate it. They didn't rate. So, but at any time, somebody can walk off the street, and unless Millis wants to cap, and I've asked that, I was like, is there a cap on this program? I've asked surrounding towns, and there's never been any caps, so when I talk to other veteran services officers, I'm like, okay, so if 8 people walk in from the street, that's a kind of significant, because worst case scenario I've learned is about $1,100 per month per individual. Okay. So I was basing that 10,000 on like a 12-month worst case scenario. I know it's $12,000, but that was, as I was being alerted they were coming, without seeing any information. So to be honest with you, that was I don't know if that goes back but somebody could come off, somebody in April from Millis could be like, hey, I heard a Chapter 115, here's my information. Do I rate it? And then all of a sudden I start pushing buttons and they do. And then I do need that money. Okay. I guess that's not as scientific but I guess that's where, I guess I would look for guidance where, no, you can only have 12. I don't care if 34 people come off the street, because in all honesty, I don't think people know about it.
Sure. There are other benefits in town that are capped. So I certainly will ask more about that. In fact, I'd like to hear from either Carol or Mike now to see if, kind of their perspective and their experience and knowledge on it. Can you speak to that, either Carol or Mike?
I cannot speak to it. I would have to investigate it to find out first if you can limit it, because it is reimbursable from the federal government. It's something I'd have to research and get back to you on.
Okay, and that's fine, Carol.
I'm not certain, Mr. Chairman. I'm not certain on the matter, but I'm not aware of the ability to put a cap on it. But it's something that we can look into.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the committee or anybody else that's on the Zoom?
One quick question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Doug.
John, you had a slide up about other towns, and I didn't memorize all the towns that were on there. So do all the surrounding towns around us, do they all have VSOs?
They do, if their population, I think, is over 3,000. But many towns they've combined. For example, Medway, my town, when I retired out of the Marine Corps and came back to Massachusetts, I went to Medway, and they didn't even really know where to point me to. And then I figured out the one who serves Medway is in Ashland. Okay. And I've noticed they cater, because now I know them. And they're like, yeah, we also do Holliston, but Ashland is our focus of effort. And if we get somebody from Medway to come through our door, we of course help them. But, so there's coverage, but it's not adequate.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that this is something that could possibly benefit from some sort of a consolidation or shared services deal like that, where, you know, you have sort of a head VSO, if you will, and then surrounding towns have support for all those towns. Mm-hmm. Just seems like something that where there's some economies of scale to be had, as opposed to every town, you know, having their own. But that was just what you're doing is terrific, by the way.
Thank you. You can go that way. And I actually, that was one of my questions when I first came on board, and there was a reason, and I wish I kind of took note, but either Medway or, well, Medfield is the other closest one. And I think Medfield serves Walpole, and they didn't want to take on Millis. Actually, I know Medfield and Walpole have teamed up, but they do have a staff, you know, that they have the assistants and stuff like that. Anyways, so some towns do that. I think, you know, I can look a little bit more into that.
It would be interesting or probably useful, more than interesting, to find out what the, you know, the staff hours per vet is in those towns. So in other words, you know, your 2 hours likely not enough. And again, grateful for anything that, you know, we get from that 2 hours. It sounds like we're getting more than we're paying for. But it would be useful to kind of compare, you know, what the administrative, you know, workload is per vet, so that you can gauge it. You know, you can extrapolate, well, what is appropriate. If some town like Medfield and Walpole has a staff and they're putting in, I don't know, 120 hours a week between however many people, divide that by the number of vets, you may get an average if you apply that across the state. So that would be useful if you're able to come up with that information.
In this all honesty, just the program to get the DD-214s, I had to get some Medway individuals. Like I'm helping, we scratch each other's backs.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like there are some towns that they have a very strong and they have these capabilities, but I've just noticed that just some towns are significantly better than other ones. Sure. Yeah. And anyways, I could.
Well, let me just say that you have an advocate in me. I'm a veteran, but it doesn't take a veteran to have an advocate. So I think that, you know, from town to town, you'll get different levels of support. But I think all in all, Millis does a great job of supporting its vets, and probably a very interested, you know, citizenry that would be interested in your cause. And part of that's awareness and outreach. So last call for any other questions from the committee.
I just have a comment.
Go ahead, Joyce.
My dad was a veteran, and when he passed, he and my mom lived in Wellesley, and nobody in the veterans in Wellesley knew to give her any guidance. And it wasn't until I finally reached out to Millis and was able to get some guidance. So not all departments, not all towns are as educated or as helpful or as informed. So I want to just thank you. I know that you're new to the position, but I do want to thank what our town has already provided, and I hope that we can continue to provide even more.
And just to add that, like the big thing with the VA claims, I couldn't do it. I was sending Millis elsewhere, Millis residents. It wasn't until they kind of were like, hey, you can get into the game. A lot of people don't like getting into the game with the programs because it incurs work. That they can put them off or send them directly to a VA. Just be like, I'm the VSO. I don't file those claims. Just go to the nearest VA and you can do that. Well, the nearest VA is Brockton and in Denham.
Well, mine was even just what benefits my mother was due after my dad died. And it was more than $250, but we didn't find that out until much later. And it was because no one knew in Wellesley, but Millis was able to advise us. So there's truth to each town having expertise and better services than others. And I do think I applaud Millis. That's all. I applaud Millis.
Chair,
Okay, John.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Yes, I know what this fellow does, and you know, you've been so underpaid for so long, and the really hundreds of veterans that live in Millis. You know, a lot of people don't even know there's that many vets in Millis, and you know, I congratulate you, and whatever you're looking for, I make a motion that we grant that. If anyone wants to second it, thank you.
If allowed, I second it.
I'll take that as a tongue-in-cheek motion and second. You know, I appreciate the comments, as I'm sure John does as well. But we'll stick to the official. And so when John comes back and asks for something, John, you know, you have an audience that's certainly interested within the Finance Committee, and I'm sure the other committees in town. As has been tradition with me, certainly a new chair to this committee, I'll give you the last word.
To me, I'm sorry.
Yes, John.
Okay. Oh, just thank you for hearing me out. And you know, Millis has a rich history with veterans. Not only is the building named after it, you know, it has 2 Medal of Honor winners. And that's pretty astounding for the size of Millis to have that history. And I've just been proud to, you know, I did 20 years for, you know, this country, and I like still serving, and I'm doing that. So I appreciate that opportunity Millis has given me to keep giving back.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for your service. Okay, with that, Chris Fogarty.
Good evening. Chris Fogarty.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Millis Recreation Director, here to do my budget presentation. Basic overall, the Recreation Department is dedicated to providing Millis community with extracurricular, educational, entertaining activities via sports or programming or interaction for all ages. An overview of the operating budget is basically our instructors offer programs and set the user fees with the advice from the Recreation Director and the committee. The department receives 20% of those fees, which are then used for all operating costs, including approximately half the director's salary and fringe benefits, the department assistant plus a third of those fringe benefits, paying for the instructors and the seasonal staff, professional development, printing, mailing, seasonal brochures, office supplies, etc. Some of the accomplishments during 2020, basically we had to pivot and think outside the box. We all know it was a very challenging year. First and foremost, I just want to thank everybody for granting us in the fall the $10,000 to keep us afloat. But in the meantime, what we did is we collaborated with a lot of different departments, including the Council on Aging, and we created a Sunshine Club, which was a pen pal program. We also, as always, we always collaborate with the fire department, so we're so grateful for them. And we hosted the Santa in a Snow Globe, which was a little different, but actually we may be going forward using that plateau moving forward, because it was just actually a very, very well received and successful event. We also worked in conjunction with the Millis community media, and we had Zoom calls with Santa. And we also worked very closely, or I worked very closely with our Metro West departments, and we shared ideas. And one of the successful ones was e-games, and that was, we hosted tournaments, and just that was not that I like to be outside, but this is the trend. So we kind of hopped on board and went with that. And it was actually very successful. Overall, we were actually able to offer some wonderful and creative programs, including the Bunny Hop, Elf on a Shelf, Nailed It Challenge, Chalk Your Walk, Hearts for Healthcare Workers, the Thanksgiving Turkey Hunt, Halloween Pet Photo Contests. And it was just more of just keeping the community engaged during 2020 when most people couldn't leave the house. And just, we felt it was very important to keep people socialized at a distance, but keeping their mental health in check. Our main goal was to stay relevant, as we knew a lot of the programming as far as soccer or basketball, that we just couldn't do it with all the protocols and of course COVID. And actually we've gotten a lot of feedback from the community, and we're very grateful that we did offer a lot of these programmings for the town. So, you know, it's funny, I hear people like, oh, your job must be so fun. You know, it has its perks, just like with any job. But I do have to make a point that there is extensive planning and coordinating and organizing and attention to detail that has to be put into each and every program that we offer. And I guess if people think that my job is fun and easy and just all I do, I take great pride in that. So I'm glad that that is what the community is enjoying and as part of our programs. So I'm actually pretty proud of that. We were also able to focus a lot on the increase of our social media updates, which I wasn't hugely familiar with, but I dug in and I found some great programming, and we were able to create these wonderful marketing flyers, and we've gotten some great response, as well as the virtual classes that we offered. As much as people, again, like I said, wanted to get outside, people were willing to sign up for our programs. One of the great accomplishments was, again, and thank you to the town and the administration for backing the department on this, was the pickleball courts. And if you build it, they will come. So I don't know if anybody's driven by that area, but it's in full use and it really has exploded. And we're very excited. We have tons of programs, Learn to Play, intermediate, and we've nearly tripled our participation since we started with just the indoor court in the Veterans Memorial Building. So it's kind of cool. And along with that is the tennis. We've put that back online, and classes have been in huge demand. And we offered a program, and then we're able to continue that and add on a couple more classes because everybody was so thrilled. And, you know, Tom Ingraham, he does a great job. So the other accomplishment we were very proud of was the grant that we received for the inclusive camp last summer. And it was a very, very well received. Due to COVID, we could only have limited participants, but we're looking forward to bringing that back again this summer if possible. We'll get into that on my other request for the marijuana money. But we are excited to bring that inclusive camp back to Millis. Some of the goals that we're looking to do is to, again, expand the pickleball programs. If I had somebody there 24/7, there would be programs running there 24/7, you know, dusk to dawn, or dawn to dusk. Whenever the lights go out, they would be there until then. We'd also like to complete the basketball court that we received donated funds from a resident in town, but with the construction of the school and then COVID, of course, we just have kind of put that on the back burner, but we really want to make that come to fruition and get something constructed, hopefully this year. And we also identified the need for inclusive programming. So we'd like to expand on that as well. And also getting a storage shed. We do have that big green container. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Anybody who's participated in soccer, you know, you had to go get your nets and bring them down to the fields. And there's that large container there. We'd like to possibly get a smaller one. And then I've talked to Jim, and Jim is able to use that big container for the DPW. Any questions so far? I know I'm kind of going through this very quickly.
None so far though. Chris, I assume that you're going to hit on the additional funds for part-time salary.
There we go, right there.
Okay. Hey, before you do that, I just want to, you know, there's no reason to wait until the end. I understand what you're saying. You know, people must think you have such a great job. One, you have a effervescent personality, and as I've said before, you know, the town is lucky to have you in the position that you're in. And even though we haven't always been able to support some of your requests, that's not because we don't appreciate what you're doing. And I'm glad that you take pride in, you know, somebody asking you and telling you that it looks easy. Because the first thing you would hear if an activity is unorganized is how terrible it was, or the feedback would get around, and the next time it wouldn't be well attended. So I think you're on the right track in terms of taking something like that as a compliment. And, you know, from one, you know, I know your activities span the ages, not just the kids, but from a parent, we certainly appreciate what you're bringing week in and week out. So thank you. And you're welcome to keep going. I'm sure I'll give others an opportunity to do that when you're done with your budget presentation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So basically, we are going to request our level funded would be the $32,665 to continue to support the director's salary, which is a portion of the salary. And that was what we put in there. We did put in above level service, and I will explain what that is. We did request $11,920, and this would be for the department assistant. The department assistant was hired as a part-time 10-hour-a-week position with no benefits. That person has also taken on a 20-hour-a-week position under another department, which now is considered full-time. And according to the revolving fund that was changed a few years ago, this now entitles her to receive benefits, full-time benefits. So even though she's only in my department 10 hours, it's just the way that the fund works or functions. So if we were to take that $11,920 and maybe put it into a separate line item for part-time salaries, it would then take it out of the revolving fund, and we would not have to pay for the benefits for that position. And basically is a savings to the revolving fund of about $5,500. I could be off, and I apologize. Maybe Carol could tell you the numbers, and I may have that documentation here, but I'm not 100% sure. So that's basically what we would like to do at this point. Just, it makes sense. And it also kind of pushes forward, you know, supporting the department through the overall operation budget eventually. So that request would be, again, $11,920. So that is basically the request for the budget.
And so you have a plan for the additional, what you would use for the additional hours, or are you saying that those additional hours, it's not necessarily additional hours, it's they're funds that you were required due to some rule that says, hey, if a part-time employee gets benefits elsewhere, that you also have to contribute, your department also has to contribute to those benefits. Are there additional hours that you're talking?
No, there is no additional hours. It would still be a 10-hour-a-week position.
Okay.
That would be the salary for that. And again, it would offset. So that position's getting paid that amount right now currently, but on top of it, because she's being paid through the revolving fund, it also requires that we pay the benefit, or a portion of the benefits. So her 10 hours, we have to pay a portion of that because she's considered full-time at this point.
Okay, I somewhat understand it, and I'm definitely gonna ask Mike and or Carol to comment when we're done. So if you would go on to your HCA request.
Okay, so we have two requests. The first is the inclusive camp, and we're requesting $9,200 for the salaries and supplies. Again, we ran this last summer through a grant, and I calculated all the funding that would be required for any salaries and supplies. We do have supplies, but we would definitely need additional supplies. Again, it was very successful. What we'd like to do is we offered it at a very reasonable price for folks in town. Again, COVID has hit everybody very, very hard. And, you know, the kids are just looking to socialize and get out there and have some, you know, something to do, have some fun, organized. So just based on last summer, we're hoping to expand it, but just looking for the funding to pay for the salaries for that program. I don't know if you guys have that information of the broken down information. I don't have it right now. So, well, I have it, but I don't have it to share on my screen, I guess is what I'm saying.
So we have your notes, your letters to Mike dated January 15th on the $9,200 for the inclusive camp, which includes a couple-page letter and the breakdown of you know, the activities and the schedule.
Yes, that would be it.
Okay.
The other request that we were making is a teen program coordinator. Not team, but teen as in 13-year-olds. I think this would be fantastic for our town. We do not have a youth commission at the moment, and the usage of these funds, I think, is spot on. And basically what we're looking to do is to have the teen program coordinator who would perform and plan and organize and just from start to finish any programs or projects for the youth of our town. They would oversee everything and coordinate with the DARE officer to implement specific needs of the town, of the teen population. You know, they could be assigned for special projects, you know, if that comes about. Again, it would be from start to finish, any programming, get those teens involved, do some team building. Sorry, I know it's fun. It's like team. Get some team building. Just get them off the streets, give them something to do, organize a kickball game, have a 3v3 basketball tournament. And by having this person on staff, it also alleviates program fees that kind of go directly, so for example, we have to pay Fast Athletics, just for an example, for them to come in and run a program. This would actually have somebody within our department to run everything, and the money just comes right back to the town. It comes back to the department, and it goes right back to the community. I feel like I'm very enthusiastic about this position. So I hope you take that into consideration. And if there's any questions or somehow I can improve on it, that would be welcome.
I'll just give you my 2 cents right off the bat is I think that this teen coordinator position is probably the priority amongst the 2 programs that you've laid out for HCA funding. To me, that would be the target audience, although, the inclusion audience is certainly important, but in terms of HCA funding, I think that would be the priority. And I think you ought to put, you ought to develop it further so that hopefully there's, enough funding to do all of these programs. So I just think that one needs a little bit more fleshing out and details. So I don't think it's a hard sell, but I also think that, there's those programs that you just described verbally should be included in your write-up. And, perhaps you just need more time in order to be able to flesh it out. It's not like it's going to be easy to come up with a part-time, for a full year of everything that needs to be done. I understand that. So perhaps a little bit more detail, but regardless, I think I would support it. And I hope that, the select board and the voters would as well. So that's my questions that I have, questions and comments so far, and over to the committee or any other Zoom participants.
I do, Kathy, but if anyone wants to go before me, it's cool.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, okay. I've known Chris forever, probably the longest as anyone here. And she's, stuck with the rec department and has done a lot on her own without really being, in my opinion, recognized. So I fully agree with her budget. But my one thing I'd like to say, Mr. Chair, is that I would say 80% of Chris's budget should come from the marijuana, because it's all ages that, according to what you have to submit to the Commonwealth to have it considered from marijuana money, as everyone knows, it has to be given to, keep the people off of marijuana and stuff like that. So, but the state really requires it has to, make sense that, have this type of program, like the teen program, because, then they're not, smoking a joint behind their garage or something. So I think, Chris, you should really go for that large sum of money and do the program with all of that. And it would be smooth riding all the way for you. Good luck.
Okay. Thanks, Kathy. And while the rest of the committee might be thinking of a question or two, I want to defer back to either Carol or Mike on discussion regarding the benefits for the part-time individual. Can you add a little bit more insight to that, either Mike or Carol?
Hi, it's Carol Johnston. I can add to that. The Recreation Revolving Fund is a 53.5E organization. As part of that, the requirement is any salaries drawn on that fund have to pay the proportional benefits that go along with that position. So that's where in the rec director's case, they pick up half her salary, so they would pick up half her benefits. For the department assistant, that 10-hour position, in total, the person's working 30 hours, so they're picking up 1/3 of the person's benefits. The revolving fund is supposed to pay the benefits. It goes into our refunds and reimbursements. However, in the last year and a half, the revolving fund has not had the ability to pay that. So the town hasn't been reimbursed for the benefits, even though they're supposed to be, because there's not enough money generated by the programs. So, but it is a requirement as it being a 53.5E organization.
So, Carol, just to clarify, I mean, I hear you describing a proportional cost share between any revolving funds and the other portion, the other hours and the other benefits. It's just not much voodoo to it. It's just a cost share.
Exactly.
And what is the repercussions of not, of the revolving fund not paying its portion?
It gets picked up 100% by the general fund.
It does, but when does that have to be fixed? And is this request appropriate here?
It should be fixed as soon as money's available in the revolving fund. The issue that we're having with the revolving fund is that they haven't generated, it's supposed to be a self-funding revolving fund,
Yep.
only they haven't been able to maintain enough programs due to COVID. But even before COVID, they were running into a problem with getting profitability into that fund. So it's a matter of, honestly, they need to go back and pay the town for the benefits provided. However, the 10-hour person is not working currently in the recreation department, so that she's not being paid out of it. So there aren't any benefits associated with that. Okay. That remaining part of the benefits being picked up 100% by the general fund.
And so there should be no expectation by anybody that it's forgiven. Rather, the expectation is that it be paid back.
Yes.
But is there any document or any paper trail that says that?
It would only be for benefits paid out of the revolving fund. So if the revolving fund is not paying that staff person currently, then there wouldn't be any money for us to get from them.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Just to back up a little bit on this, several years ago, we had some discussions, and I think Mr. Schultz and Mr. McCaffrey will recall some of those discussions we had, as well as Chris Fogarty, as far as looking at the funding sources for the recreation department and determining really a policy path forward. That's really a lot of this is deciding how much of the department should be funded through general fund revenues and how much through the revolving funds. And generally on a town by town basis, that's a policy discussion. So the request that is currently, before the select board and the finance committee has to do with the discussion of where the funding is appropriately found for this purpose. The mission of the benefits is really just an attached side issue, and it is of consequence because those benefits have costs attached. But I think the broader question here is it's a policy as to determine if those funds should be brought in from the general fund. And I think some of the discussion that was had several years ago said that when funding from the town's general fund was available, the town would look at transferring some of that cost over from the revolving funds to the general fund.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, I recall those conversations. My proposal then, it was all pre-COVID, Chris, it doesn't count. But my proposal back then was use the revolving funds when they actually had money, basically eliminate the revolving fund, put it all into general and just make it a town department. I mean, the library doesn't rely on library fees to keep the library afloat, but the library fees are turned to the general fund. But there was resistance at that time by some on the committee to give up the revolving fund. I don't think we can have our cake and eat it too. I think we have to give up, if we make this a town department, the revolving fund has to go away. And I think that's the solution that I keep suggesting. Then it behaves as if it were any other department in town. Now, when that proposal was made, I suggested 2 or 3 years ago, there were real dollars in the revolving fund. So it was pretty much a revenue neutral proposition. There was enough money to pay Chris's salary. There was enough money to do everything we needed to do. It was just which pocket was in. But at that time, the rec commission, at least one member who attended our meeting and spoke, wanted to keep his $60,000 to $90,000 revolving fund and have the town pick up Chris's salary, which to me was a non-starter. If we're going to pick up the salary, which I think is the right thing to do, we have to do it by taking the revolving fund and making it just another general revenue source. And then if there's not revenue because of COVID, the town, assumes the cost like it has with other departments. And if there is revenue that's made because of the programs that are run when they're running at full speed, that money just goes into the general fund. That was my suggestion back then. And that's still my solution, I think, to the problem that needs to be, I think that's the solution that needs to be followed. But right now, unfortunately, there's no money in the revolving fund to make it an easy solution. But that's, I think, the larger discussion that has to happen.
Okay. All right. Well, anybody else?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Doug.
So I think I'm on the same page as Craig in general. My recollection is that, and Craig or Chris, correct me, my recollection was that when we did this initially, the idea was a transition period. And in fact, we were going to bring the department on completely as a regular department over a period of 2 or 3 years. And this was an interim solution because there was money in the revolving fund, but we were tighter on the general side. And so that sort of has been in limbo since then. Is that approximately correct? Or am I misreading something?
I think that was very much the idea we had at the time, except I think the big sticking point was the desire to keep the revolving fund and absorb the salary. I don't think you can do both. I think you have to treat it, if it's going to be a town department, it's going to be a town department like every other one, which means there's not a large amount. There's a token revolving fund in other departments, but there's not a revolving fund that's, all the revenue that's brought in goes into the revolving fund. So I think that it's got to be handled as if it were a town department. And I don't know how to having said all that, Chris, I don't know how to make that happen at this moment, because I haven't looked at it and thought about it and run numbers on it. But conceptually, when everything's running normally, your revolving fund has had enough money to pay your salary and pay all the expenses for most years. So if that was all rolled into the budget, theoretically, that revenue coming in would cover everything.
Right.
And you do it as an earmark the first year directly to that budget, and then the budget would be allowed to grow and that revenue would be just part of the base that goes into it. So it's quite conceivably, it's quite easy to do once you have money coming in. Right now it's difficult.
When they were discussing this, they were talking about, and I don't remember who, it was I believe an outside source suggested this 53E.5, and I said, no, do not do the 53E.5. It can't absorb salaries plus fringe benefits.
I heard that,
okay.
Chris.
I'm going to ask.
I just got it. I have a.
Hold on, everybody.
Bye.
Hold on, everybody. Hold on. We're running long, and I think it's a good discussion to have. I just don't think we're going to finish it, and I think we've had enough of a decent discussion on it tonight. So you know, unless there's any other points about Chris's budget or her presentation, Chris, I'll just anything in closure from you.
I just want to say I very much appreciate all of your attention and all the questions, and thank you. And thank you for volunteering for this board. It's a lot of responsibility. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, thank you very much. That was good discussion there, and I hope we'll continue it. You know, like you said, those are policy decisions. It doesn't much matter. The history on it is important, but it's not necessarily the driving factor on where we go or how we get there going forward. And perhaps it's an item for tri-board discussion or select board discussion. So let's keep going. Right now, I think, let's see, we have the assessor's office, and is Terry on?
I have an iPhone user and
Right.
there's no name.
Deidre, I believe that is Terry. If you could unmute her, if you have her muted.
I can unmute her.
Yeah.
I can ask her to. Yep, she's all set.
Hi, this is Lisa. This is not Terry.
Right, so that's what, well, there's no name associated with it, so I wasn't sure, so maybe.
I didn't know how to put the name on, sorry.
Mike, Jim, Kathy.
Terry, I don't have Terry.
Just a second, let me see who else is on.
Robert Weiss.
So there's one iPhone on. Okay.
That's Lisa.
I know she thought she was on because she emailed me and said she thought she was the iPhone that was showing up on the screen.
Okay, well, that's no problem. I'm looking at there's actually like a list view on my app and I don't see it. So we'll, if she joins, then we'll put her in, but let's move on and we'll go to Carol for the finance office.
Great. Good evening, it's Carol Johnston, the finance director.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Starting off with the finance director accounting group, you'll see that these on the salary line, that is just the contractual salaries that we have for FY 2022. The difference between FY 2021 adopted and the request is that, if you'll remember, my team was reduced by 5%, actually 10% from July until December 1st. So that is the variation in the salaries that you're seeing. The SEIU contract is under negotiation and it ends, the current contract ends July 30th, 2021. So there will be an article for the SEIU contract, what we think is going to be an increase, as well as the fire department. But for now, you won't see any increases because we don't know what they are. The only increase that would happen is if someone had a step increase on that. You can see that our expenses remain flat. And that's basically it for the expenses for the finance group. We've been a very busy group this year. We finalized the chart of account with the municipal school chart of account. We now have the school and the town on one financial system in Munis. Currently, it's going well over at the school. They're able to run reports, get their itemized budget. We've also rolled out purchase orders to the school, as well as invoice entry for the employees over there. So right now, as I said, it's going well. We have rolled out the employee self-service to the municipal employees, where they can sign on to the self-service and get their paycheck, see what their personal information is, change their address, see what their vacation, personal or floating holiday accruals are. And we plan on rolling that out to the school before July 1st. We just have a little more work to do on the school side for their supervisor level and some accruals that need to be put into the Munis system for the employees. that's it in a nutshell for the finance team. We've been very busy. Do you have anybody have any questions?
None here, Carol. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
I see that Terry, the assessor, is phoning in now. Terry's iPhone. I can go on and complete the treasurer.
Carol, would you mind just while you have the floor, go ahead and hit IT?
Oh, sure. So on the IT budget that's in front of you, you'll see that we have an above service, well, it's really not an above service level because we asked for it in the fall and received monies for it. But there's an $80,000 IT position. We currently have an agreement with the town of Norfolk that we will split this position 57%, 43%, so that the town of Millis would pick up the $45,600 for the salary. Norfolk would pick up $34,400. That reimbursement will come in through refunds and reimbursements as a local receipt. So even though it's exactly the same as we do for the animal control officer, they're a Millis employee, so we have to pay the benefits and the salary. It's included in our budget, but then we get the reimbursement from the other town and goes in under refunds and reimbursements. We do have an increase in some of the line items for the software maintenance. We took on more of the Munis for combining the town and school programs together. So there is an additional fee for annual maintenance for the software. And that's pretty much it, the annual license fees as well.
Carol, does the school share that fee?
The school is going to pick up $14,000 this year. They're going to pick up graduated amounts over the next several years till they get to be 50%. That was an agreement with the superintendent, with Nancy Gustafson. So we're working well with them as far as communication, and also with this combined project. They've been extremely cooperative. So we're pleased with the situation as it is.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions?
I don't. I'm just looking through your documents while we're talking. Or anybody else have any questions for Carol? Okay, Carol, unscathed.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Terry, if you're there, can you just acknowledge verbally, let me know you're there?
She had joined, but then left, so I'm not sure.
Maybe she's getting tired of waiting for me. I'm so far behind schedule.
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to keep going. So, Deidre, if you see her pop up again, just let me know. And just
here she
depending on
comes. Here she comes now. Yep.
Maybe she's watching on TV. Terry, are you there? Can you hear me?
She's connecting to audio.
Yep, I see it. And Lisa, you're on deck, so please bear with us. We're getting there. Hi, Terry, are you there? One more try. Terry, can you hear me? This is Pete Berube.
Okay.
I can go through the assessors if you want.
Don't have a seance feel to it. If you can hear me, please make it up.
She has her hand up. She has her hand up. So.
Okay. Well, we cannot hear you, Terry. Hopefully you can hear us. We'll give you this one last chance because we definitely need to hear you. Okay. Well, I'm sorry if the my tardiness on the agenda tonight has caused any technical difficulties, but bear with us. We're going to keep going on to Lisa Harden, town clerk's presentation, and if you're still there, we'll give you one last try. Otherwise, we'll probably just have we'll either reschedule you or we'll have Carol present. So, Lisa, over to you. I'm striking out everywhere.
Speakers, I'm telling you.
I'm trying to get on. Am I on yet?
All right, we hear you now.
All right,
yep.
There we go.
Hey, Jody.
Hey. Let me get a bit of background. I'm just kind of down in the office. So I'll go in here where you can look at Clico behind me. Okay, can you see me or hear me?
Both.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm Lisa Harden, the Millerstown clerk. I have I'm in charge of 3 budgets that are all done through my office. Town clerk, elections, and registrar. The town clerks, just for a general overview, our office does not bring in a lot of money. We are a service oriented department. And we have many functions. We register voters, run all state and local elections, perform the annual town census, which is kind of going on right now. So if anybody still has theirs at home, if they could get it in, that would be great. We issue dog licenses, which we're also doing right now. Business certificates, marriage licenses. We preserve vital records. So all the people who were born, got married, or died in the town, we have their records, and other historical town records. We take and preserve minutes of town meetings, and we have minutes of other boards' meetings here. In terms of providing things to the residents and other people, we provide certified copies of vital records. And we do some genealogy research. I just had a woman call today who grew up in Millis. She now lives in Holliston, and she's looking for some copies of her great-grandparents' births, marriages, deaths. So we do that kind of thing. And we keep track of zoning board and planning board decisions. And we provide information to the general public, residents of the communities. We communicate with the Attorney General's office and the Secretary of State. So it's a lot of different things, and it's kind of, we jump around from one thing to the next, depending on who calls, and in the past, who came in, which we haven't had lately. This past year has been strange for all of us, but we are still providing all the documents to people. They call, and we either hand it through the door or tape it to the door. And I think people are happy with the ability to still get all the documents they need. This past year, in terms of accomplishments, I would say that the elections and the town meetings being held safely in spite of COVID was amazing. And I haven't heard that any of those events turned into a super spreader event. So I'm very happy about that. They also, because so many people were home last year, it was a fantastic interest in all the elections, much higher than normal. And I'm hoping that that continues. Let's see, we started out with the presidential primary, which was March 3rd, which was right at the beginning of we were hearing about COVID, but we didn't actually have to, we weren't being told we had to do anything about it. So that was sort of well, there was a lot of interest, but it was similar to 4 years ago. So 44% turnout. And we had early voting in this room here, actually, 1:30, and that was very well received. So the next election was the town election, which got put off till June. And by that time, we were dealing with COVID quite a bit. And with the help of Selectman's office and the Board of Health, Paul Sims, the custodian, and all of our election workers, we were able to hold the town election, and it was about 3 times, well, maybe not 3 times, 2 times what we thought we might get. But the other difference, in addition to COVID, was that there was a huge increase in voting by mail. So
Lisa,
that was probably.
Lisa, can I interrupt you? Could you head on to your budget from here, just because we're so far behind schedule?
Oh, I really wanted to talk about my accomplishments. All right. Anyway, just quickly, I will say that we have a huge increase in interest in voting by mail, and I think that will probably continue. So it isn't just like the one-time thing, and also the early voting. And hopefully people also the interest in the town election. Okay. So town clerk, I'll just go into the form. I guess, I don't know what form it is. The one that has all the numbers, dollar numbers on it. I'm asking for a small increase in my salary. I have been asking for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now to go full-time, and that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So I'm now asking to go to maybe a quarter time. Maybe like we could build it up over a few years, but we could try going to 25,000, because right now I'm making 12,000. And just like last year, over election time, I worked like 50 hours a week. So it's very difficult for me to have other jobs during those periods of time. And I do need to pay my bills. So the other possibility, if you don't want to do an actual salary like that, is to do some kind of an election stipend. I mean, it's still difficult to have a job where you do it some months and not other months, but if we could consider maybe an election stipend, something like that, that would really help.
Lisa, during elections, do you work or get paid overtime?
No.
Why not?
I get $450 a month, whatever I work, because that's.
Is it because it's an elected, because it's an elected position? Elected,
and nobody's been willing to raise it or do anything else. I mean, there are some other town clerks who get some kind of an additional stipend. They are elected, they get an additional stipend for elections or whatever. So we could, whoops, sorry.
All right, I guess we could.
Why is my hand? let's try that. There are a variety of things that could be done, but I've never been able to get anyone to consider them. And they say, and I've been told that, you know, I was elected knowing that this was the case, so I should just live with it. But I was first elected in 2003, and the position was much different then. And over the last 18 years, the position has grown, the responsibilities have grown. And, you know, if you think of somebody being hired at a business and then at a certain salary, and they stay for 20 years, and over that time, their, you know, additional responsibilities are added, it is not uncommon for people to ask for a raise. So that's what I'm trying to do, because
I understand. And Lisa, I'm going to give you, you know, my 2 cents on it. And I think that before I would support this, and I don't speak for anybody else, but I think before I would support this, I would have to know and have to agree that the town needs, the town has a deficit in the clerk's office that would make it prudent to spend $12,000 additionally this year, $12,000 additionally next year, the year after, and the year after. In other words, I think the request overall is for an additional $50,000 to $75,000, and I could have that wrong. But speaking for, you know, I'm trying to represent the best interest of the town, and I don't see, or it hasn't been conveyed clearly, that the town needs to spend an additional $75,000 a year for the services that the clerk's office provides. I don't look at it from the sense of, you know, you took an elected position and for a known salary, unfortunately, we're not looking, it's not getting for you, unfortunately for you, we're not looking at it from the sense that, does Lisa need additional revenue, which is what I heard you say. I certainly empathize with that situation, but in my capacity here, I'm looking at it from the taxpayer situation. What additional services does the town require that would make it a prudent decision to spend an additional, again, $12,000, $50,000, $75,000, an additional $75,000 a year in the clerk's office? And even if it did, there are other competing priorities that, you know, are also documented and fairly well known.
Well, I've been basically working for free. So I have lived here 50 years. I love the town. I love doing the town clerk's job. I am elected. I'm not going to let people down. So I'm not going to not come in because I'm only getting $450 a month. You know, I mean, I can't do that. But on the other hand, you have to think ahead a little bit for the department. Eventually, I won't be here. Can you get, I'm a department head. I have a full-time and a part-time person working for me. I have to work other jobs during the day, so I can't be here very much when they are here. So I can't really supervise them. They're doing a good, you know, a good job on day-to-day stuff, but they would like to have me in here all the time. And I can't be, you know, and nobody could be expected to be here all the time, you know, 40 hours a week. I think that's like totally unreasonable for anybody to think that. And so I come in at night and on the weekends, and I'm putting in the time so that the town doesn't notice a deficit. Like, there are things that are not getting done, but they're not things that are, you know, like the filings piling up and things aren't being kept. The historical records aren't being kept the way they should be. In the past, I had time to apply to the Community Preservation Fund to preserve some of the historical records. I haven't had time to do that in many years. And, you know, elections is a huge amount of time. And I'm just saying, yes, you think everything is going fine, but that's because I'm willing to come in here and work for nothing. And I can't just keep doing that until I leave, and then you're going to find out this isn't working. How are we going to fix it now? You know, like, I'm trying to give people a heads up. Hey, you know, I would like to benefit if you decide that you're going to pay somebody a little more, since I've been here 20 years. But, you know, even if you decide, well, you're not worth it, I would like to have something in place so that when I do eventually leave, there's a, I don't even know how to describe it. There's
right. Well,
something.
yeah, Lisa, let me just, I'm going to try to transition a little bit, but first, don't construe what I said as you're not worth it. That's not what I said. And I'm not sure if that you meant it that way, but I certainly didn't mean my comments to say that you're not worth it.
Oh, it wasn't you.
My comments are more along the lines of, if there's a deficit within the town clerk's office, that's what should be addressed. It shouldn't be addressed in the sense of Lisa needs to additional revenue. So I want to, unless there's other comments from the committee on this particular portion of the budget, I want to move on to, there's another request as well, but anybody else have any questions for Lisa or comments?
I'll just leave it that there's a report that came out that the Selectmen commissioned about a study of the town clerk's office. I've looked it over. I'm sure they'll look it over as they prepare their budget recommendations, and then we can see where that goes with what their report and what the budget recommendations come in. But there was a study done on that.
I'm sorry, who did the study?
I'm very familiar with that study, and in it,
hold on, one at a time, please, one at a time.
I was first.
Okay.
Go right ahead, Kathy.
I just want to know who did the study.
Craig, do you know who did the study?
I don't recall who did
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead,
yeah,
Mike.
Mike would know.
The study was done by Community Paradigm Incorporated.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
When was that done, Mike?
That was completed about a year ago.
Okay.
And it was recommended, Mike, if I might just say, Mr. Chair, that the town consider, no, they said to, I think, leave Lisa as an elected position. Am I right, Mike?
They actually said, I don't have the report right in front of me, so I don't want to try to quote it, but I think they had indicated that the town should consider making it an appointed position.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, the complete opposite of what, yeah, but that was right. Yep, I remember that. And that's a consideration, Pete, you know, because when you're elected, you don't have to, by law, you don't have to report to work at all. But the committee group thought that it should be appointed position, and then it would be a 40-hour-a-week job, and there you would get the work done and everything. So that's right. Thanks for that.
So
report.
did the study, was it a manpower study? Did it comment on? And Mike, we can answer this next time when you have it with you, or you can provide it to us. But was there a manpower study that said, the manpower?
Yes, there was.
Was it sufficient in the town clerk's office or insufficient, Mike?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. To summarize the report's summary of the issue, they did do a manpower study in the office and determined that they felt that the office was sufficiently staffed.
Okay, well, that's one opinion. And
okay. No, it's a study. It was a study that the town paid money for. That would behoove everybody on this commission to read it and learn. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McCaffrey, go right ahead.
Yes, I would echo what was just stated by your colleague, Ms. McGinnis. This was a published study.
Yeah.
It's available to anyone who wants to read it. Talks about headcount, talks about comparative data with respect to other communities, makes comments about elected versus appointed, generated a potential job description for the position. At the time the report was issued, the select board took the position that it was not interested in moving from an elected to an appointed position at the time.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that the concept of the study is not still available for everybody to read. And certainly it is still fairly current in terms of the information that was generated in the report.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else?
Yes.
I think that's you, Lisa. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm very familiar with the study. It was a couple years ago, not last year. But two staff, when they were questioned by the people who were doing the study, both said that everything was great and they didn't need me to be in here more. But before and after, and to my face, they've always said,
okay, you know.
More. So I'm just saying,
it's in the report.
I have a lot of
Kathy, could you mute your mic, please?
Hold on. I have a lot of problems with the study because the other thing is when they talked to me, I told them, you know, like 10 different things that they should ask other town clerks to compare with Millis. And they didn't ask any of those questions because I went around to all the surrounding town clerks around here and they said, nope, all they asked was how many people are in the office and what I'm paid. And they didn't ask anything else about, just as
okay, Lisa, I understand.
Just
and
give you one example, just one. All the surrounding towns have a full-time person in a planning board in the town hall, which we do not have. So my alternative, if you didn't want to pay me more, was to hire someone to be full-time for planning board, conservation, in that office, because our office handles a lot of that because nobody's here for that office. That's just one example. And I've talked to,
okay,
you know,
Lisa, we need to move on. So I'm going to ask you to move on to your Form 6, which is the dog licensing software.
Yep, that's fine. I didn't know we were going to get to that other report. I put that in here because Medway, we share an animal control with Medway, and they have a licensing system, but I don't really think it's a high priority, and I'm not pushing for it this year. It's something that'll be coming. We should look at it. You know, people want to pay stuff online now, and I know some people are able to pay their tax bills online, their real estate tax bills online now. So,
okay. And so to me, it looks like it's a couple $1,000s up front and then $1,800 a year for licensing or for some reoccurring fee.
In there that they kind of nickel and dime you. And then there's a fee for the residents to use it for online payments, which I think is similar to the real estate bill.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Lisa?
On the other bill, other than that, I'm pretty much asking for level funding.
Okay, Lisa, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to present to us, and I'm sorry that we ran over and I think we got you on a little bit late.
Oh, that's fine. And if anybody would like to talk to me about, you know, my requests, that would be great, because I haven't ever had any follow-up.
Well, I think we just had a good discussion here. At least it's a start. So thank you, Lisa.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Terry, is Terry on?
I think I am now.
Thanks, Terry. I apologize if we got you sideways from being late, but the floor is yours.
Okay. I've never presented to the finance committee, to the Millis Finance Committee before. I'm not sure how you want it presented. Do you want to ask me questions?
Yep, I'll give you a little guidance just to kind of help you and help us.
Okay,
if you wouldn't mind going through, so we're looking at your budget spreadsheet that has your FY22 requests. If you could just kind of hit the any highlights, anything that's out of the ordinary, whether it be COVID related or on a one-time fee or something that jumped up. Everything looks fairly level funded. I'm sure there's some longevity increases and personnel type increases. But just kind of hit your budget highlights for us. And then if you have anything that you think is noteworthy, you don't need to go through your entire budget narrative. We can read that on our own, but we certainly encourage you to hit any kind of like we call the wave tops, hit the high level stuff. Okay,
the actual budget showing the personnel, the salaries, and the everyday line item expenses. There's no large changes in that. And as far as the salary line items, that has to do with the union, and I do not have any idea what that status is right now.
Okay.
But on the outlier on the budget items would be the $15,000 for RRC. RRC does our personal property, and that did go up $6,000 from last year. That increase is due to regulations inputted by Department of Revenue. They've changed the way utilities have to be valued, the utilities being the electric company, the gas company, the wireless companies. They've changed the way that those have to be done, and it's a higher expense through the company. That is that $6,000 increase in one of the items that comes from free cash. And also we are asking this year for an additional $14,000 towards the recertification for 2023. Towns are recertified every 5 years, but it's a 2-year process for payment because the actual work starts the fiscal year before the actual recertification. So fiscal 2023 work will start in fiscal 2022. A year from now, we'll have already started the recertification process for fiscal 2023. And a year from now, we will be in fiscal 2022. So I'm asking for half of that up front, and then the other half will request in fiscal 2023.
Terry, can I interrupt you? Where exactly is that particular line on your, if you could just.
That would be on Form 6.
Okay.
Budget request above level services.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you just described to me sounds like what we would call a must-pay bill. Could you comment on that? Is it a must-pay bill that you must be certified in 23, so you must start the work in 22?
Yes.
And what happens if you don't?
If we don't what?
If you're not certified in 23.
We do not have a choice of being certified in 2023. The Department of Revenue tells the towns the years they're going to be certified. The last certification for Millis was 2018. The next certification is 2023.
Okay.
That is a must.
Understood. And that's why I just wanted to hear you say it. Okay.
And then we did put in a request for a capital expense. I don't know if you want to discuss that or not.
I do, yeah. Is this your Form 5 for iPad and software?
Yes.
Please.
The iPad and software will make the data collection and the data entry more streamlined. The data entry can take place right out in the field when I'm out in the field. The upfront cost is high, and then there's the yearly maintenance fee. The upfront cost is $18,595. The annual maintenance fee from October which is when it would go live, is $4,100. So we're estimating going forward, it would be about $5,500 a year for the maintenance fee. once we purchase the actual product. This product will not only do sketches and data collection on site, it will also be able to do the photographs on site and download it right into our Vision software, which is our real estate software. This particular product is compatible with Vision.
Okay. I assume that's a kind of an industry standard.
Yes.
Okay. I had read this earlier, so and we actually had discussed it in the capital planning committee as well. So any questions from the committee or anybody else that's on the Zoom?
Mr.
Not
Chairman.
all at once. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. This is Doug. I'm invisible at the moment. I read the invoice or proposal. So I understand the maintenance fee and I understand the upfront costs. This is for a term of 3 years that's renewable for an additional 2 years. Is that correct? So basically the $18,000 is the 3 year. I guess what I'm asking is at the end of 3 years or 5 years, is there another large licensing fee that comes up, or is it a one-time shot and then you just have to pay for the maintenance annually?
My understanding is for the iPad and the software, it's a one-time shot and then you pay the annual maintenance fee. I'm not talking about a map. I'm not talking about the mapping. I'm talking about a handheld piece of software to do the data collection.
Doug?
Yeah, I'm still, I mean, that's what it looks like. So where it says all prices are quoted on 3-year contractual pricing terms, which has an option to be renewed at the same rate for 2. So is that only referring to the maintenance?
I'm not sure what you're reading. I'm sorry.
Line
items, PAMA Cloud Mobile Assessor licenses, minimum 3-year term. Is that what you're reading?
Yeah. And then
Okay.
there's an asterisk down at the bottom on the first page of the quote on the 18,595.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, all right. I'm sorry. I see what you're talking about. All prices quoted are based 3-year contractual price terms, which does have it to renew at the same rate for 2 additional years. Any term lease is subject to increased licensing fees. I would have to double check with them on that and to find out exactly. I would say, looking at the way that this is, I would say that fee would be on the maintenance fee, not the actual piece of application, not the actual piece of software.
Okay. That's what I was thinking. Licensing and maintenance are 2 different things though. So that's what I got confused on.
And I can double check with that to make sure that I am explaining it correctly and get back to you. I can do that tomorrow.
That would be awesome to have that clarification.
All right, I can do that.
Thank you.
Clarified maintenance.
Any more questions or comments for Terry?
Excuse me.
Terry,
Doug,
Terry, you can forward it to Deirdre, please.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions from the committee? And any closing remarks from you, Terry?
No, thank you for your time and thank you for your patience while I was getting sound. I heard the entire meeting, but for some reason we're having a hard time getting you be able to hear me. But if you have any other questions about the budget, I will find out about this piece of equipment and get that information to Deidre. If you have any questions about the fees and the cost for the recertification process, please let me know. And
thank you very much.
Give you whatever information I can.
Thank you very much. No apologies necessary. Many of us have had the same issues over the none of us are immune to Zoom. So thank you very much, Terry.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Good night, thanks. Terry.
Okay, Mike, floor is yours for article discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In keeping with your request that we kind of just stick to the changes, and in light of the later hour, what I will say, just to summarize, is the committee should have the your first draft of the warrant with the articles included, although many of the articles are still in the process of drafting and have not been completed. But just to touch upon where the articles have gone, the warrant has gone since your last meeting. The select board at their meeting on Monday removed 2 articles on the warrant, draft warrant. One was the proposed street acceptance of the Hickory Hills subdivision. It was determined that acceptance process could not go forward because it just wasn't ready and wouldn't be ready by the time of the town meeting. So that's been removed. Also, there was an item or an article on there for a possible sewer bylaw. That's been removed. The select board is getting some recommendations from the Enterprise Fund Advisory Committee about some other sewer related issues, but there'll be no sewer bylaw proposal on this spring's town meeting. Just touching upon the next item I want to touch upon is the capital items. I think it's listed as Article 15 on the draft warrant. There were a number of other articles listed under the capital items. Historically, those items have been rolled in to one capital article versus having a whole number of separate articles. So that would be the plan, to have mostly those some of those recurring capital articles simply rolled into a single capital article, and that would be item 15. Articles 16 and 17, the select board is still considering whether or not those items should remain as individual articles or be rolled into the budget. But at this point, they're still listed as separate articles. So I just wanted to point that out. Let's see. Other than that, I don't think there's been any changes to the articles as far as the lineup or any additional articles. Actually, I take that back. Article 11, which is, and again, I think the article list you have, the numbers aren't in line with the draft warrant I sent out or distributed, but there's an article for the establishment of the Lansing Millis Memorial Building Stabilization Account. That is an item that was presented by the Permanent Building Committee at the Select Board meeting on Monday.
Mike, could you hold on for 1 second?
Sure.
So that's on the, you said a fund for the Lansing Millis building. It is not Article 11. So let us see which on our meeting materials. Deirdre, do you know which one that one is?
I actually don't have it included. I wasn't aware of it.
Okay. That's fine. We'll get it out after the meeting and send it out just like we did the list, the assignments. So we'll update that and then we'll assign it to somebody.
All right,
so Mike, sorry about that.
No, that's fine. So again, that article is going to be discussed with the Community Preservation Committee at their meeting tomorrow evening. The committee will be discussing whether or not funds through the Community Preservation Program could be used to help establish such an account. The reason for the article is to for funding, I think up to $360,000 to do work on the Lansing Millis building, really to preserve it from the elements and put it in the condition so that it doesn't further deteriorate, to close gaps in the building, to put on a new roof, and some other issues that the building is in dire need of. So there'll be more information coming along about that for your next meeting. But that article was added. So other than that, and other than the fact that, you know, language has been put in to most of the articles, and as I said, several of the articles still have information that need to be filled in. That's where we are right now. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the Finance Committee may have.
Mike, what can you tell it? Last week, it was somewhat up in the air about what is shown as Article 32 authorized the sale of town land, Acorn Street.
Yes, the select board
still moving.
The select board is still discussing that, and there's been no final determination whether that article will stay on the warrant or not. So that could be removed, but I can't answer that question for certain tonight. And that is a, just to give a little background, that's a small parcel of landlocked land that I think Mr. Fox has expressed an interest in, and sent a letter to the town asking if the board would consider getting authorization for the town to auction that land. And so the select board is considering that, but hasn't made the determination whether to put that forward in front of the town meeting at this time.
Okay.
Here, Pete. Kathy, please.
Kathy, go ahead. Yep.
Is Finance Committee allowed to be privy to the address, Mike?
Yes.
Location. Thank you.
It's Acorn Street, but I'll have to
3 miles long.
Yeah. Gotcha. I'll have to get the actual lot number for you. I don't have it right in front of me. But I can certainly get that out to Deirdre tomorrow to send out to the committee.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McCaffrey.
Yeah, just the context. It is a small landlocked piece of property. It is not elongated, it's square. It's basically adjacent to the property that Mr. Fox currently owns, and he's developing for the current Hickory Hills over 55 community. We're still discussing with him his desire for it. And I think we're going to want more information for him as to why he wants it.
Okay.
And if I might, Chair Jim, the town owns it?
Yes, it's town-owned land. It was seized for tax taking.
It was, yes, it was foreclosed for lack of payment of taxes.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
Okay, 1 second. I'm just reading over the articles. And by the way, if anybody has any questions for Mike on some of the articles that they may have, that Mike is a source, you're welcome to contact him, or if it's a quick question, you can give him a heads up now.
Chair Pete, if I might take this opportunity to ask a question of the Chairman McCaffrey.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering what you would feel at the the Select Board's opinion would be of memos or
oh shit.
Kathy, we lose you?
Kathy, or did I lose you? No, there. Okay.
Says she's still connected. All right, well, if she comes back, we'll perhaps give her another opportunity. So on the agenda, Mike, there's a, actually it's not in the agenda, it's in the meeting materials, and it's HCA requests. So if I'm not sure that you need to discuss those, but Deirdre, do you know why the FY22 marijuana impact funds requests? Hold on, Kathy, we'll come back to you.
Excuse me. Yeah, I put those up there just because there was a question when Kim Tolson was here last week. What the library's request was. So it was more like an FYI, not so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Kathy, back to you.
I just want to just finish up by saying, how would the selectmen be okay with the finance committee discussing and perhaps voting on an article before the select board does? And if it's an inappropriate question to ask, I'll call Chair Jim at some point. Thank you.
Mr. McCaffrey, do you care to
certainly not one
opine?
to tell the finance committee what it should be doing. It's up to the finance committee.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, we've got to approve some bills. I don't know how you approve bills. Actually, I do know how you approve bills. So if everybody's had a chance to look at the postmaster bill, can I get a motion?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Jody.
I move that we approve a bill to the postmaster and the amount of $681.22 for the spring 2021 warrant printing, I believe it is. Is that correct?
Second.
And Jody, 1 second, Katie, thank you. Jody, do we need to specify funds? Or Mike? Or is it just?
I think it just comes from
general.
Our
postage line item.
Yeah, our postage line item.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded that we vote to approve. We approve the postmaster bill, postage bills in the amount of $681.22. Discussion. None heard. We'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? Is Jim Borgman on?
No, he is not.
Okay. I think I've got everybody but him, right, Deirdre?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any old business, new business that anybody wants to bring up?
Mr. Chair. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
If
Jody.
you don't mind, if I can go first. So I haven't received any comments on our policies and procedures manual, but I'd like to, well, with respect to the chair, I'd like to keep things moving along on this. So, as we get into the thick of it with making our motions and recommendations, we don't have that business to continue to attend to. So just put it out there to encourage everyone to take a look at what's been written and give comments, and perhaps in a future meeting we can kind of reconcile a draft to put forth to vote on.
Okay, thank you. And given those comments, my intent is that we will provide all of our comments prior to our next meeting, which is next week, the 31st. And we will have a discussion on those. Will be an agenda item. And by the next meeting, no later than the meeting after that, we will vote on adoption of those policies and procedures. So 2 weeks from tonight, we should be voting on that document. And that will be hard to do, or everybody will have their opportunity to have their say and their input in that document for 1 more week. And then we'll discuss it and we'll vote on it, is my intent. So, okay.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Mr. McCaffrey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a very small item. I was wondering if the committee would consider perhaps expanding the press run on the Finance Committee report to allow us to have substantial number of documents ready for distribution at town meeting for those who may not remember to bring theirs or for some reason didn't get it. I'm pretty sure that given the situation we're in, if there's additional cost, it could be well justified under the CARES Act. But if we think about trying to make sure that we've got the information available to the town meeting members when they come in, it just would facilitate the meeting. And as you all can see, we have a substantial number of articles, which means it's going to be a bit longer than perhaps the ones we've held the last two COVID-oriented town meetings. So I'm just wondering if, I don't know what the process is for ordering the numbers, but if you would consider perhaps additional press runs or something so that we'd have enough.
Okay.
So
thank you, sir. We certainly will consider it. Go ahead, Deirdre.
So typically we run the residence numbers and send them to the printer, usually about like 50 to 100 more copies. Whatever you suggest, I'll work with the printer in order to get it done. Would you think 200 more, Jim?
I'd run 500, but that's just me.
Oh, okay.
Going for a record turnout, huh?
We'll
I charge
we'll
them
take it under
the day of the
we'll take it
event.
under the committee. Will take it under consideration, and we'll discuss it with
just throw
Deirdre
it out
and the budget and Mr. Gazinski, and we'll let you know. But I'm sure we will. The number, we'll make the sausage later. We're not going to make it right now.
And one other just technical note on the agenda, just want to clarify, your agenda notes the date of the meeting for May 1st, and it also makes a note of May 3rd. There's no May 3rd. It's the 1st and 2nd, or the 8th and 9th. So just to be clear, we shouldn't be, the old date is gone.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. McCaffrey, would you care to give us some insight on the venue?
The venue is going to be the same place we held the November town meeting, which is the high school parking lot. So that's the intent, at noon on Saturday. Hopefully the weather will be good. The same team that has worked on logistics has already met once, led by the town administrator. So I think we're in pretty good shape for planning. We are planning the capacity for more than we saw in the fall. But we do believe that absent a meeting like we had when we had the school, which was 800 people, we should be able to accommodate at the high school parking lot. There's room for expansion if the number on day of, if the number of people is more than we would anticipate. But at this point, those are the logistics that we're planning on.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anybody else before we wrap up? None heard. I'll take a motion.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.